One of the most stubborn challenges in the industry, hiring and keeping top talent. Welcome to Construction Genius. My guest, Mike Mataloni, has spent decades helping companies solve people problems that masquerade as business problems. And drawing from his years leading CEO mastermind groups, Mike created the XP3 Talent System, an end-to-end approach that connects every stage of the employee lifecycle, from hiring and onboarding to training, coaching, and retention. So today we're going to dig into why most companies still rely on gut instincts in hiring and why that's a mistake, how to define success in a role beyond vague job descriptions, and what does it really take to transform B players into rock stars. Mike also shares practical onboarding strategies to boost 90-day retention rates, the keys to building a culture that inspires discretionary effort, and how shifting leadership structure can slash turnover while driving explosive growth. If you've ever struggled to get the right people in the right seats and keep them there, this conversation will give you a proven framework that you can start applying today. Let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Mike, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you, Eric. Great to be here.
You know, one of the biggest challenges that the folks that I work with have is hiring and then retaining talent for the long term. Construction is a tremendously competitive industry. What was the breaking point that made you say, you know what, I'm going to build my own talent system to help people solve that problem?
So it actually goes back, Eric, to 2002 through 2007. I spent 5 years leading CEO mastermind groups and serving as an executive coach and facilitator for Vistage International. So what I learned over that time was two key things that led to creating what we now are calling the XP3 Talent System. One is to scale a company profitably, successfully, consistently. You have to have a system and a process for everything you do. And the second thing that I took away was that almost most business issues that are presented are really people issues in disguise. So with that, I started looking around and said, all right, well, what kind of people systems are out there then? And as you know, there's a lot of hiring systems, a lot of training systems. But what I didn't see or find was an end-to-end system that connected the dots between the employee lifecycle. So from the hiring to the onboarding and ongoing training and development, to coaching and performance management to make sure they stick around for the long haul and are producing at the top of their game.
Okay, so that's one of the major issues that folks have when it comes to talent management. You have three choices, right? And think about that idea of get the right person on the bus in the right seat. So let's say I have a person on the bus. I can either move the seat they're in, I can either train them up to be better at the seat that they're in, or I can get them off the bus. Why does it take people so long to get people off the bus when they know in their gut, in their head, with the metrics that this person is not a fit for my company?
So my experience to that is a couple of things. One, loyalty for whatever reason that you have to that person, right? Or most people, as you're probably aware, just hate having those difficult conversations. They don't want to fire people, which there's some attributes to that, right? Having some empathy and sympathy. But when you've gone through and exhausted those three avenues and none of them are a possibility, or the first two, move them up, move them over, then you've got to make that decision. And by the way, that kind of goes back to the value of a peer group advisor. When you've got 4 or 5 of your colleagues telling you this is what you need to do, it helps sometimes, to have that push, if you will. Right.
Yeah. Give us a little more on the way that you approach hiring so that you can actually increase the likelihood of bringing on the right person and putting them in the right seat.
Is the person smart enough to learn what you have to teach them? They have to learn your systems, your processes, your products, your methodologies, right? Yep. Faster they can learn that, faster they're going to be a productive member of your team. So are they smart enough to learn? 2 is, are they coachable? So through that hiring process, you have to test them a little bit and instruct them to do a few things to see, are they coachable? Will they follow through? Those are some of the key things. The other things, front end, is removing the subjectivity from hiring that most people bring, hey, I got a good gut feel about this person, or I have a bad gut feeling about this person. And that's where some of the initial science comes into play. So it's kind of like if you're dating, right? When we're dating somebody, we're on our best behavior, trying to be everything we think that person wants us to be. And that's what candidates are trying to do, right? So if you look at it, our job is to hire the best person. The candidate's job is to be the best person. And if you recognize that, what you're going to find is most people, probably 60% of them, are not really being themselves in that interview process. So you have to be able to break that down and see past those elements. And using your gut is not a good, effective way initially to do that. Now, that being said, I also say when you've gone through the whole objective process of hiring effectively, and then at the end point, your gut is telling you something ain't right, then I say listen to your gut at that point because you've done all the objective things.
Describe how you would go about that process.
Yeah. So the first thing you have to do is define what success is in a role. And that's another mistake most people don't focus on. What they focus on is, hey, let's pull out a job description or create a job description. And most job descriptions are filled with a bunch of vague tasks and descriptors. Like, for example, must be proficient in the Microsoft Office suite, right? Yeah. Or must be a highly effective communicator. But the problem when you use those words like that is, right, they're subjective. Your definition, my definition could be completely different of what proficient or effective means. So rather than focus on that job description, you should focus on what does success look like in the role. So example for a project manager, right? Bringing the jobs in on time, on budget, no safety issues, incidents.
You may have an idea of what those metrics are, but how are you going to get the idea of whether or not they were able to achieve those metrics?
First, so you have to have a structured hiring process to figure that out. So I'll put that out there as the first step. It's about getting that candidate excited and enthusiastic about the opportunity, the company, to where they're willing to jump through hoops. But then our next step is to send a knowledge and skill questionnaire that's specifically related to the requirements of the role. When you figure out what results they need, then you ask questions around that and tell me about your record with doing that. Now, candidates are telling you what you want to hear. So the questionnaires that we use, they have to put it in writing first. That gets scored. This is where some of the analytics come in. So we can pinpoint from that initial assessment where they're strong, maybe where there's weaknesses.
So immediately what popped into my head is, okay, great. They're going to take these questions. They're going to run them through ChatGPT. They're going to throw in a few of their ideas and boom, you're going to get an AI answer. You seeing that, or what are your thoughts on that?
That actually happens a lot. And that's where I was going. So the next step, once you get that assessment, is the pre-screening, right? Assuming they do well enough. And by the way, ChatGPT now is used obviously a lot. And you can kind of tell looking at it if it's a ChatGPT structured answer, right? If you see enough of them. But even if you can't, the next step in our process is a 1-hour Zoom video interview. And the purpose of that interview now is to drill down. And what I would do is say, hey, Eric, thanks for filling out that questionnaire. You did a great job. That's why we're talking to you. Now that we're face-to-face on the Zoom interview, I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 of those same exact questions.
Yeah, there you go.
I need you to verbally answer them.
Yeah, it's going back to that, is this idea of, can you communicate verbally now? It's going to be so much more important since we can all cheat with ChatGPT.
Exactly, right. But that's your confirmation whether they can or not, or have that skill set.
Yeah, that's excellent. No, I like that. I like that a lot. All right, quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. This is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, search for the book, read all of the 5-star reviews, because there's a ton of them. Over 50 to be precise. And the reason I want you to read them is because real people wrote those reviews who've actually read the book. And it'll give you an idea of why you should go and buy a copy right now on Amazon. And here's the deal. If you purchase 10 or more copies for your company, and then send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com. I'll come in via Zoom and do a 1-hour Q&A and a bonus training session with your team at no charge. I normally charge $4,500 for an hour of my time. And again, for you, I'll do it at no charge if you buy 10 or more copies of my book. And the reason you should buy it is all in the title. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So if you're in the construction industry, this book is for you. So you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on Audible in the audio version as well, narrated by yours truly. And I know you'll really enjoy it. So go out and get the book. And now
back to the interview.
What is most critical after the hiring decision? Because a lot of times what happens in people's brains is like, let's say the CEO says, I need a project manager. So I go out and find a project manager, and I've hired the project manager, and my brain switches off from that person because I fill the hole and I move on to something else. And that's really a big mistake, right? So I really need to focus in the next 90 days, making sure that they're a success. What should I be focused on in those 90 days?
So we're all hoping to hire that A player, right? We want that rock star that we think we don't have to do anything with. They're going to show up day one and start producing. Well, we know for a fact, based on extensive research, that only about 20% of the working population are those natural A players, right? 60% or more are actually B players, or what we like to call high potential, right? So the reality is most of the people you're going to hire, or even if they appear to be an A player, are still a B player. And you have to transform those people. And again, even if it's the A player, they still got to learn your stuff and learn your systems, methodology, tools, et cetera, right? So the onboarding training is the most important piece of the puzzle, right? Because again, you can take someone who's just average, but you can convert or transform those people into being a rock star if you know how to structure your onboarding training properly. By the way, two things I want to caveat. Onboarding is not filling out HR paperwork as most HR professionals do. Onboarding is focusing on these three objectives that we teach. Number one is create an amazing learning experience for these people and a great first week. You only get one chance to make a good first impression, right? And again, you're trying to transform these people into passionate, collaborative company advocates so that they're going home every night, their first week on the job, telling their friends and family what a great decision they made joining your company because everyone's been so friendly, so welcoming, helping me to learn, right? So create an experience. Number two is help them understand the big picture. And that means how the whole organization works. And again, not how to do everything. Hey, how do we market and bring on new clients? How do we sell our jobs? What's the handoff to production? How does that work? What's the handoff to finance, customer service? So the more they understand those pieces, the more connected to your organization they're going to be. And what most companies unfortunately do is hire you as a carpenter, electrician, a PM, and I'm just fill out HR paperwork. Now go do your job. Right. You're basically setting them up for failure. So the emphasis is on that onboarding training. And the third objective of the onboarding training you need to focus on is creating relationships with as many other coworkers as possible, which then leads to collaboration. Build out a structured training plan for at least the first day or two. Ideally, our system says 3 days for most companies, and it depends on the size of your company and how many departments and stuff you have. But usually a 3-day is ideal. And then you have to test the person. And it could just be as simple as, hey, I just spent an hour going over these things. Answer these 3 questions for me. How do we do this? When do we do that? Right?
Yep.
So that's probably the simple starting point right there.
How do you define the word culture as it relates to a business?
Yeah. So culture is the mindset of the organization and how people work together. And it's grounded, when done properly, in your mission, your vision, and your core values. Mm-hmm. Your mission should get people passionate about wanting to be a part of your team. I love your mission, what we're doing, what we're building, and I want to be a part of that. Right? 2, your vision should excite them about the future. Like what is possible as this company grows and achieves this growth goal? Not only what is it possible for the company, but what does that mean for me, right? What growth opportunities are there for me? So they should be excited about that future. And your core values need to be in alignment with every employee to make sure that they're important to them, because that's how we make decisions day to day. So like integrity, right? Most companies will have integrity as one of their core values, but what does that mean to your company, which could be different than mine? And then making sure that you're incorporating those things in your hiring process and talking about it. And by the way, on that, go back to your onboarding training question. One of the first things that you should do with all your new employees, the first session should be around your mission, vision, and values. And then what you're trying to do there is create a psychological connection between the new hire and your culture, right? So if you look at the owner of the organization, right, it's your mission, your vision, your values. You clearly are psychologically connected, which means you will do whatever it takes to achieve those things, right?
Right.
And by the way, this leads to what's known as discretionary effort. the average employee only puts in about 40 to 60% of their capabilities. Their
Sure,
capacity.
of course.
But in that scenario I described, the owner will put in 150%, whatever it takes. Well, you can get your employees to put in that kind of effort well and tap into that other 40 to 60% that they choose whether or not they're going to put that effort in if they are psychologically connected to the organization, which is your culture.
There's some construction companies that are built because the guy is just an ass kicker, right? And he's just going to go out there and he's going to do whatever's necessary to get the job done. And it's not necessarily a culture that is tremendously attractive to a lot of people. So what do you do when you're working with a guy who's been successful in terms of being able to generate money and get jobs done, and yet the culture is not a place where someone may want to work?
So one of the things I would ask in that situation is, do you know what your turnover is? If not, let's figure it out. And do you know what that's costing you? And if not, we can help you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And most organizations don't really track that or understand the actual cost behind it. It can be anywhere from a third of the annual salary to 150% of the salary, depending on the role and the position that they're in. But it's costly. I worked with a client years ago that they'd been in business 9 years. They were doing about 63 million. They had 4 locations and they were bleeding because they had over 80% turnover. And that was costing them millions. Now, that being said, the owners were blindsided by it because they were still making millions at that level.
Yeah.
So they thought everything was fine. But when we showed them, look how much you're actually losing, or how much more you could be making if we'd stop the bleeding. Right. And then that was kind of the aha moment for them to go, oh, we didn't even realize we were losing that kind of money.
But so then that means the owners need to change. Is that right?
Yeah, they have to change their mindset or turn over the day-to-day operations to people who want to and can do that. And you just be the strategic visionary for the company.
Okay. What did they decide to do?
So again, that 63 million, 4 locations, they had no managers except for sales managers. They were everything. They were doing it all, right? And so I said, the first thing we got to do is build a true leadership team and then let the leadership team take the lead. You guys step back a little bit, right? And let them actually lead and do what they know how to do best. And that means getting people who understand this concept and what it takes to build a high-performing team. And that's what they agreed to it. And that's what we did. And by the way, that year we broke 100 million, opened up a 5th location, and then the 80% turnover within 6 months got down to 23%. So we were able to show them just in that first 6 to 12 months how they were able to put another 4 or 5 million of profit in their pockets.
Think about the last time you promoted someone into a leadership role and it failed. Why did it fail? I can tell you one reason. People know how to build projects, but they don't know how to build and lead teams of people. Construction comes with its challenges that only insiders truly understand. Generic leadership training doesn't cut it. You need a program to train your leaders built specifically for construction professionals led by an industry expert. And my online course, The Shift, is exactly that course. It has 5 modules. It'll teach your people how to control their calendars and reduce stress and embrace chaos and accomplish their critical tasks. It will teach them the 3 essential messages they have to communicate every day in order to motivate and lead their team effectively. It'll show them how to build and lead a high-performing team. Give them a framework for running effective meetings so they'll be able to solve problems in less than an hour, and also give them a higher perspective on their leadership that will enable them to work on the business and on their teams and not get stuck in the weeds micromanaging. So go out to my website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, read all about the course, and then enroll yourself and your leaders in the course, and I guarantee that it will transform your leadership. If it does not, you take the whole course and you didn't get benefit from it, you just send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will cheerfully refund you 100% of your money. I'm really confident this course will transform your leadership. So again, go out to the website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn more about the course, and start taking it today.
Tell us a little bit more about your company and how people can get in touch with you, Mike.
Sure. So again, the company's called XP3 Talent, and we created the XP3 Talent System, right, which is a scientifically validated methodology to hire, train, and retain people. We have 3 different ways that we work with people. Some of our clients just need help hiring, and we implement the first component of our system on just how to hire better and pinpoint where they're strong and weak. So that's one. The primary program that we offer is called Talent Mastery, and that's the full implementation of that talent system over the 90 days that we talked about. And then at that point, by the way, then they have the option, either they can, if they feel they've got it well then and just want to continue using our tools, right, which is our software that we created, the talent management platform, they can just license that going forward. Most of our clients usually at that point, because they are seeing the measurable results, will work with us closely in our team for at least the first year. Because again, you're not going to achieve mastery in the first 90 days. You're just going to put the basics in. Goal then over the next 6 to 12 months is to help your team achieve mastery that they can continue this. So for example, that one client I was telling you about earlier, we broke 100 million that year. That was back in 2017. Last year, I think they did close to 450 million or something. They're in about 20 different markets now. So again, but after the first year, they did the rest on their own. They just ran with it, and then they just used our software. So which is the third way that how we provide our services, just licensing the tools at that point. So that's our website, XP3Talent.com, is where they can learn tons more. And then of course, we talked about earlier, Eric, I just came out with my second book, Hire, Train, Retain. This is the second edition of the first one that came out in 2019. And this one was actually written a little differently. It's designed as a working manual to implement the talent system. So theoretically, you could implement probably 80% of the stuff in there without even talking to me, just from the way the book's written and laid out. So, but for those people that want the additional support and help, then that's where you come to us and we can help you more. But the book's available on Amazon. Well, actually, it's out of stock right now because we had so many orders. So, and Amazon's, I think, distribution got messed up, but they said by Sunday, they'll have them back in stock and ready to ship.
That's great. Great. So we'll put a link in the show notes to your website and also to the book. And Mike, if there's one mistake that someone should avoid every single time they're hiring someone, what would that mistake be?
Hiring one-sided, as I said earlier, what we need, not focusing on what the candidate needs. And by the way, the first 90 days, and I think I heard this on one of your podcasts, you were talking about it, that the most turnover happens in that first 90 days. In fact, we know it's over 33% of all hires don't make it the first 90 days. The number one reason is the I don't knows. I didn't know I had to do this. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. And if that happens, that's our fault because we didn't tell them about it, right? So at the end of your interview process, the final interview, you shift, once you decide, I want to hire this person, you shift gears and help the candidate make a good decision. So rather than just looking at can they do it, now you're focusing on do they want to do it?
Yeah.
So that's going through, hey, this is what a typical day, week looks like. These are the tools, resources you will or won't have. I even tell them about me, right? This is about me. If you're reporting to me, I have these issues, right? We all do. I'm working on it, but they're going to appear. So I don't want anything to be a surprise. And if you do that effectively, you will find your first 90-day rates will go up to 95%. Right? Because there shouldn't be ever any surprises. And you'll find your first year retention rates should be over 85%.
Excellent.
So that's the one thing I'd focus there.
Awesome. Mike, well, I really appreciate your time. A lot of insight here, and I do wish you the best. Thanks for coming on today.
Well, thank you, Eric. Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my interview today with Mike. And feel free to check out the links in the show notes if you'd like to get in touch with him. Share this interview with others and give the show a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening to Construction Genius.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.